Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the monitor screen. She had been working the night shift on the research ship Horizon's Edge for 3 months now. Most nights were quiet, just the usual background noise from distant stars and the soft hum of the ship's engines. But tonight something was different. The signal first appeared at 2:47 a.m. ship time. Lisa almost missed it because it was so faint. She leaned forward and adjusted the controls, trying to clean up the weak transmission. The pattern was strange, not like anything she had seen before in her 5 years as a communications officer. "Computer, run signal analysis," she said quietly. The rest of the bridge crew was asleep, and she didn't want to wake anyone for what might be nothing. The computer worked for several minutes before displaying its results. Lisa's heart began to race. The signal was artificial, definitely made by intelligent beings, but it wasn't human, and it wasn't from any known alien species in their databases. She picked up the ship's internal phone and called Captain Jake Morrison. He answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. "This better be important, Martinez," he said. "Captain, I think you need to see this. We're picking up a transmission, and it's not from any human ship." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Morrison's voice came back, much more alert. "I'll be right there." Captain Morrison arrived on the bridge 5 minutes later, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Lisa showed him the signal on her screen. The pattern repeated every 30 seconds, a series of pulses and tones that seemed almost musical. "How long have we been receiving this?" Morrison asked. "About 20 minutes now. It's getting stronger, which means we're getting closer to the source." Morrison studied the readout. "Any idea what it says?" "None at all. It's completely unlike anything in our files. But Captain, I think it might be a distress call. The pattern, the way it repeats, it feels desperate." Morrison nodded slowly. "Wake up, Dr. Barnes. If anyone can figure out what this means, it's him." Dr. Kevin Barnes was the ship's language expert. He had spent 15 years studying human languages and communication patterns. If aliens were trying to talk to them, Barnes was their best hope of understanding. Barnes arrived on the bridge 30 minutes later, carrying a large cup of coffee and looking grumpy. But his mood changed quickly when he heard the signal. "Fascinating," he said, listening to the transmission through headphones. "This is definitely structured communication. Look at these patterns." He pointed to the screen where the signal was, displayed as a series of waves and spikes. The repetition suggests urgency, probably a distress call like Martinez thought. But there's something else here. These longer sequences between the main pattern, they might be trying to give us information. Morrison made a decision: change course, head toward the signal source, and wake up the senior staff. If we're about to make first contact with an alien species, I want everyone ready. Over the next hour, the bridge filled with officers and scientists. The signal grew stronger as they approached its source. Dr. Barnes worked frantically with his computers, trying to find patterns in the alien transmission. "I think I'm starting to understand parts of it," Barnes said excitedly. "This section here keeps repeating. It might be their word for help or danger, and this longer part, it could be coordinates or location data." Lisa monitored the signal strength. "We're definitely getting closer. The transmission is much clearer now." Suddenly the signal changed. Instead of the repeating pattern, they heard something new. Barnes went pale as he listened. "What is it?" Morrison demanded. "Captain, I think they know we're here." The signal just changed completely. It's like they're trying to talk directly to us now." The new transmission was longer and more complex. Barnes worked with his translation programs, trying to make sense of it. After 2 hours, he looked up with a grim expression. "Captain, I've managed to decode part of this. It's not good news." Morrison leaned forward. "Tell me." "The beings sending this signal called themselves the Kalari. They're in trouble, big trouble. They're being held prisoner by another species, something called the Vorthak. The Kalari are asking for help, but they're also trying to warn us." "Warn us about what?" Barnes looked at his notes. "The Vorthak are conquerors. They take over planets and enslave the people living there. And Captain, according to this message, they already know about Earth. They're planning to come for us next. The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at Barnes, trying to process what he had just said. There's more. Barnes continued. The Kalari heard rumors about humans from somewhere. They're sending this message hoping we might be strong enough to help them, but they're also warning us to be ready to defend ourselves. Morrison stood up straight. How far are we from the signal source? Lisa checked her instruments. About 6 hours at current speed. Take us there. Full speed. Morrison looked around, at his crew. People, we might be about to make history, or we might be heading into a trap. Either way, we need to know what we're dealing with. As the horizon's edge accelerated toward the alien signal, the crew prepared for the unknown. The communications room, Lisa continued to monitor the transmission. The Kalari kept sending their message over and over, a desperate cry for help echoing across the empty space between stars. None of them knew that this single signal would change everything for humanity. The message from the Kalari would wake something in the human race that had been sleeping, something that would shake the galaxy to its core. The SOS had reached Earth's children among the stars, and soon the universe would learn what happened when humanity heard the cries of the innocent. The horizon's edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a massive asteroid field. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the view screen show hundreds of floating rocks, some as big as cities. Sensors are picking up artificial structures inside the asteroid field, reported Lieutenant Amy Cooper from her station. Looks like they've built something in there. Dr. Barnes looked up from his translation work. The Kalari message included coordinates. They should be about 15 kilometers into the field, hidden inside one of the larger asteroids. Morrison nodded. Take us in slowly. Keep shields up and weapons ready. We don't know what we're walking into. The ship moved carefully through the floating rocks. Lisa Martinez watched her communications board, still receiving the alien signal. It was much stronger now, almost overwhelming her equipment. Captain, she called out. The signal just changed again. It's different from before. Barnes rushed to her station and listened through the headphones. His face showed surprise and then wonder. They know we're here, he said. They're welcoming us. The message says, friends from the far stars, you came. We did not believe, but you came. 20 minutes later, they found the source. Hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid was a small settlement. Lights flickered and windows carved into rock walls. Metal structures connected different sections and small ships moved between landing platforms. It's beautiful in a sad way, whispered Amy Cooper. They've built a home in this cold, empty place. Morrison made his decision. Send a message back. Tell them we want to meet face to face. Barnes worked with his computers, translating Morrison's words into the alien language. The response came quickly. They're asking us to dock at Platform 7. They say their leader, someone called Elder, Zara, wants to meet us. An hour later, Morrison, Barnes, and Cooper walked through the airlock onto the alien station. The gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, and the air smelled different, like flowers mixed with something metallic. The Kalari who met them were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. They stood about 7 feet tall, with long, graceful bodies that seemed to be made of living crystal. Their skin changed colors slowly, shifting from blue to green to purple as they moved. Elder Zara stepped forward. She was older than the others, her crystal skin showing tiny cracks that sparkled like stars. When she spoke, her voice was like music, and the crystal formations on her head glowed softly. You are the humans, she said in perfect English, though her accent was strange and musical. We learned your language from intercepted transmissions, we hoped, but we did not dare believe you would come. Morrison stepped forward. We received your message. We're here to help if we can. Zara's colors shifted to what might have been relief or joy. Come. Let me show you what the Vorthak have done to us. Then you will understand why we sent that desperate call. She led them through corridors carved from asteroid rock. The walls were covered with beautiful artwork, paintings and sculptures that seemed to glow with inner light. But many of the art pieces were broken or damaged. We are artists by nature, Zara explained. Before the Vorthak came, every Kalari spent part of each day creating something beautiful. Our worlds were covered with gardens, sculptures, music halls, and galleries. We believed that beauty was the highest purpose of life. They entered a large chamber where hundreds of Kalari sat in small groups. Many were injured, and all looked thin and tired. Children clung to adults, their crystal skin dim and colorless. "These are the survivors," Zara said sadly. "Out of 40 billion Kalari across 12 worlds, only 50,000 escaped to places like this." Dr. Barnes stared in shock. 40 billion? What happened to them? Zara's colors darkened to deep red and black. "The Vorthak came 50 years ago. They said they were bringing order to our part of the galaxy. At first, we welcomed them. We are peaceful people. We thought they wanted to trade and learn from each other." She led them to a wall covered with images. The pictures showed beautiful cities with towers that looked like giant crystals, gardens floating in the air, and Kalari creating magnificent works of art. "This was our capital city on Kalari Prime," Zara said. "Home to 8 million of our people. Look at it now." The next picture showed the same city, but it was gone. In its place was a massive mining operation with huge machines tearing apart the ground. Smoke filled the air and the crystal towers were broken stumps. Amy Cooper felt sick. "They destroyed your entire city?" "They destroyed everything," Zara replied. "The Vorthak see other species as tools to be used. They made us work in their mines and factories. Those who tried to create art had their hands broken. Those who sang had their voices taken away. They wanted to turn us into machines that only worked and never dreamed." Morrison clenched his fists. "Where are the Vorthak now? Still on our worlds, mining them empty. But they are also expanding. They have scouts watching your Earth, human. Morrison, they plan to do to your people what they did to us." The room fell silent. Barnes and Cooper looked at Morrison, waiting for his response. "How do we fight them?" Morrison asked. Zara's colors shifted to something like hope mixed with fear. "They are powerful, with many ships and weapons, but they have weaknesses. They think all other species are weak like us. They have never faced anyone who fights back with real anger." She touched Morrison's arm with a crystal hand. "We sent our message hoping anyone would remember us when we were gone. We never expected warriors to answer our call." Morrison looked around at the refugee camp, at the broken art and the frightened children. Something cold and hard settled in his chest. "Elder Zara," he said quietly, "you're not going to be forgotten, and you're not going to die here in this asteroid. We're going to help you take your worlds back." Zara stared at him, her crystal skin flickering through colors humans had never seen before. "You would fight for us? Even though we are strangers?" Morrison's voice was steady and certain. "Yes. And when humanity learns what the Vorthak did to you, they'll want to fight too." For the first time in 50 years, Elder Zara felt something she had thought was lost forever. She felt hope. The news reached Earth 3 weeks later. Captain Morrison had sent a full report about the Kalari and the Vorthak threat back to Earth Defense Command. The message traveled through the communication network faster than any ship could fly, jumping from relay station to relay station across human space. President Maria Rodriguez sat in her office in Geneva, reading Morrison's report for the 3rd time. Her hands shook slightly as she turned the pages. The pictures that Elder Zara had shared were included in the file. Images of beautiful crystal cities turned into smoking ruins. Kalari children working in dark mines. Art galleries stripped bare and converted into factories. "Get me Admiral Carter," she told her assistant, "and call an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. Every representative needs to see this." Admiral Ben Carter arrived at the presidential office within an hour. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his face from the Mars border wars 20 years earlier. He had seen combat, and he understood what war meant. "I've read Morrison's report," Carter said as he sat down. "How do you want to handle this, Madam President?" Rodriguez looked out her window at the city below. People walked the streets, children played in parks, artists painted pictures on sidewalks. Normal life, continuing because they didn't yet know what was coming. "Admiral, How long would it take the Vorthak to reach Earth if they decided to attack us? Carter checked his notes. According to the Kalari information, they have faster ships than we do. If they left their territory today, they could be here in 6 months. And how long to prepare our defenses? For a full-scale war? Against an enemy that destroyed 40 billion people? Carter was quiet for a moment. Madam President, we would need every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. And even then, if we just defend Earth, we might not be enough. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Then we don't just defend, we attack first. The emergency session of the United Earth Assembly was held that evening. Representatives from every human world gathered in the Great Hall. Rodriguez stood at the podium and told them about the Kalari. She showed them the pictures. She read them Elder Zara's words about children having their hands broken for trying to make art. The hall was completely silent when she finished. Then Representative Paul Anderson from New Texas stood up. Madam President, are you asking us to go to war for aliens we've never met? No, Rodriguez replied. I'm asking you to go to war for what's right, and to defend humanity before the enemy reaches our door. Representative Susan Clark from Europa raised her hand. What kind of commitment are we talking about? Admiral Carter stepped forward. Every military ship we have, every factory converted to war production, every young person who can hold a weapon. This isn't a small conflict, this is a fight for survival, both ours and theirs. The debate lasted for hours. Some representatives worried about the cost. Others questioned whether humanity should get involved in alien conflicts. But slowly, as they looked at the pictures of Kalari children in chains, the mood in the room changed. Representative Mike Johnson from Luna Colony finally spoke what many were thinking. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the old wars on Earth. He said the worst thing good people can do is nothing when evil is happening. How can we look at these pictures and do nothing? The vote was not even close. 437 representatives voted to authorize military action. Only 12 voted against it. Within days, the war machine of humanity began to wake up. On Mars, the giant shipyards that had been building cargo vessels switched to making warships. The orbital factories around Jupiter started producing weapons and ammunition 24 hours a day. Dr. Helen Pierce led a team of scientists at the research station on Titan. They worked around the clock, developing new weapons specifically designed to fight the Vorthak. The aliens had energy shields that could stop most human weapons, but Pierce's team found ways to overload them. The Kalari gave us detailed information about Vorthak technology, she explained to her team. They use a lot of energy for their shields and weapons. If we can disrupt their power systems, their advantages disappear. Military recruitment centers across human space were overwhelmed with volunteers. Young people lined up for blocks waiting to enlist. The slogan, "Remember the Kalari," appeared on posters and banners everywhere. Commander Ryan Davis was chosen to lead the main attack force. He had fought in 3 different wars and was known for his tactical skills and his ability to inspire soldiers. He met with Kalari military advisors who had escaped the conquest of their worlds. The Vorthak are used to fighting people who give up quickly, explained Tan, a former Kalari military leader. They use fear as their main weapon. They expect their enemies to surrender when they see how powerful the Vorthak are. What happens when they meet an enemy that doesn't surrender? Davis asked. Tan's crystal skin flickered with something that might have been a smile. We will find out together. The plan they developed was bold and dangerous. Human forces would split into 3 groups. Admiral Carter would command the Home Defense Fleet, protecting Earth and the other human worlds. Commander Davis would lead the attack force deep into Vorthak territory to liberate the Kalari worlds. A 3rd group would establish supply lines and rescue operations. Back on Earth, ordinary people prepared for war in ways that surprised everyone. Factories that made cars started making tanks. Computer programmers wrote new software for military systems. Farmers increased food production to feed the military. Artists created propaganda posters showing humans and Kalari fighting together. In schools, children learned about the Kalari and their destroyed civilization. Many young people decided they would join the military as soon as they were old enough. The phrase "never again" became popular among humans. Never again would they allow innocent people to be enslaved while humanity did nothing. Elder Zara visited Earth to help plan the liberation of her people. She spoke to crowds of humans, telling them about Kalari culture and the beauty that had been destroyed. When she finished speaking, there was rarely a dry eye in the audience. "Your people have given us something we thought was lost forever," she told President Rodriguez during a private meeting. "You have given us hope, but more than that, you have shown us that there is still good in the universe." Rodriguez clasped the alien elder's crystal hand. "Elder Zara, when this war is over, your people will be free, and the galaxy will know that humanity protects the innocent." 6 months after Captain Morrison first heard the Kalari distress signal, the largest military force in human history was ready to launch. Over 2,000 ships of all sizes prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel. Millions of soldiers, sailors, and pilots prepared for battle. The message had been received. The decision had been made. Humanity was going to war, not for conquest or resources, but for justice. The Vorthak had awakened something in the human species that they did not understand and could not fight. They had awakened humanity's fury. The human war fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kalari Prime system. Commander Ryan Davis stood on the bridge of the flagship Freedom's Dawn, looking at the tactical display. What he saw made his jaw clench with anger. Kalari Prime had once been a beautiful world covered with crystal cities and floating gardens. Now it looked like a diseased planet. The surface was covered with massive mining operations and industrial complexes. Smoke filled the atmosphere, turning the sky a sickly brown color. "Sensors are picking up over 3 million Kalari life signs on the surface," reported Lieutenant Tony Martinez from his station. "Most of them are concentrated around the mining sites." "Slave camps," said Tan, the Kalari military advisor standing beside Davis. His crystal skin had turned a dark, angry red. "They keep our people in those places and force them to work until they die." Davis activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Commander Davis. Today we begin Operation Tauted de Righteous Fury. Our mission is simple. Free every Kalari on that planet and destroy every Vorthak facility we find. Show no mercy to anyone who enslaves the innocent." The Vorthak had 40 ships defending the planet. They were larger than human vessels and had powerful energy shields, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity before. Colonel Frank Miller led the first wave of attacks in his fighter squadron. The small, fast human ships swarmed around the bigger Vorthak vessels like angry bees. Dr. Pierce's new weapons tore through the alien shields, and within an hour, half the Vorthak fleet was destroyed. "They're not used to enemies who fight back this hard," Miller reported over the radio. "Their tactics are all wrong. They expect us to run when they fire at us." Captain Nicole White commanded the orbital bombardment from her cruiser Lightning Strike. She targeted only military and industrial sites, being careful not to harm any Kalari civilians. The precision strikes destroyed Vorthak command centers and weapon platforms while leaving the slave camps intact. The real battle began when human ground forces landed on the planet. Davis led the main assault force toward the largest slave camp, where over 500,000 Kalari were being held. The camp was surrounded by high walls and guard towers, like a prison from humanity's dark past. The Vorthak defenders fought desperately, but they had never seen humans in combat before. Human soldiers moved with a fury that shocked their enemies. Every freed Kalari, every destroyed slaver facility, every site of cruelty only made the humans fight harder. Sergeant Lisa Park was the first human to break into the main slave compound. What she found there would stay with her for the rest of her life. Thousands of Kalari, including children, were packed into metal barracks with barely room to lie down. Many were sick from malnutrition and overwork. Some had injuries from beatings. "Medics!" Park shouted into her radio. "Get every medical team down here now." But the Kalari didn't run toward their rescuers. They cowered in fear, their crystal skin dim and colorless. 50 years of slavery had taught them that any new arrival meant more suffering. Elder Zara had come with the human fleet specifically for this moment. She walked slowly into the camp, speaking in the musical Kalari language. When the prisoners saw her, Their skin began to change color for the first time in decades. "The strangers from the far stars have come," she announced. "The humans have come to free us. The long night is over." The liberation of Kalari Prime took 3 days. Human forces swept across the planet, destroying every Vorthak installation and freeing every slave camp they found. The Vorthak soldiers who surrendered were taken prisoner. Those who fought to the end were buried where they fell. But the victory came with a terrible cost and emotion for the human soldiers. In one camp, they found a building full of broken Kalari artwork. The Vorthak had forced artists to create beautiful pieces, then destroyed them in front of their creators as punishment for any resistance. In another location, they discovered a mass grave containing the bodies of Kalari children who had died from overwork in the mines. The human soldiers who found it had to be pulled away by their officers before they did something that would haunt them forever. Major Pete Johnson led the assault on the planet's former capital city. The Vorthak had built their regional headquarters on top of the ruins of the most sacred Kalari temple. When Johnson saw the desecrated site, he personally planted the explosives that brought the enemy building down. "Let them rebuild their temple," he said as the Vorthak structure collapsed. "Let them remember what beauty looks like." The news of Kalari Prime's liberation spread quickly through both human and alien communication networks. On 11 other Kalari worlds, enslaved populations began to riot when they heard that freedom was possible. Vorthak forces had to fight rebellions on multiple planets, while also trying to defend against the advancing human fleet. Captain Amy Russell led the liberation of Kalari Moon Base, a research facility where the aliens had been forced to develop new mining techniques for their masters. The Kalari scientists there had secretly been working on weapons to use against the Vorthak. When the humans arrived, they found allies ready to fight. "We never stopped hoping," said Dr. Vex, the lead Kalari scientist. "We knew someone would come eventually. We just didn't know it would be the humans." On the industrial world of Kalari, 7. Commander Sarah Lee found something that made her sick with rage. The Vorthak had set up breeding facilities where they forced Kalari to have children who would be raised as slaves from birth. The youngsters had never seen sunlight or breathed clean air. "Get transport ships here immediately," Lee ordered. "These children are going home to a real world, not this factory of misery." As word of the human victories spread, something unexpected began to happen. Other enslaved species in Vorthak territory started sending distress signals to the human fleet. The Neks, a race of gentle farmers, begged for liberation from their mining world. The Zeth, who had been conquered only 10 years earlier, offered to join the fight if humans would help free their homeworld. Davis realized that Operation Ew, Righteous Fury, was becoming something much larger than just liberating the Kalari. It was turning into a galaxy-wide war of liberation. "Admiral Carter," he reported back to Earth, "we're not just fighting the Vorthak anymore. We're freeing everyone they've enslaved. And sir, there are a lot more species in chains than we thought." The response from Earth was immediate and characteristic of humanity's new resolve. "Understood, Commander Davis," came Admiral Carter's reply. "Free them all." By the end of the first month of fighting, human forces had liberated 6 Kalari worlds and 3 planets belonging to other species. The Vorthak Empire, which had expanded unchallenged for centuries, suddenly found itself fighting a war on dozens of fronts. But the enemy was not finished. Deep in Vorthak space, their leaders were planning a response that would test humanity's resolve to its limits. They were preparing to strike at the heart of human civilization itself. The war was far from over. The alarm screamed across Earth's orbital defense stations. Admiral Ben Carter ran to his command center, still pulling on his uniform jacket. The tactical display showed what he had been dreading for months. A massive Vorthak fleet had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. "How many ships?" Carter demanded. "Over 800, sir," reported Captain Danny Brooks from the sensor station. "They're moving straight toward Earth. No attempts to communicate, no demands for surrender. They're coming to destroy us." Carter activated the emergency broadcast system. "All defense forces, this is Admiral Carter. The enemy is at our door. This is what we prepared for. Show them what happens when they threaten humanity's home. The Vorthak Emperor Krak stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue and green planet ahead. He was 12 feet tall with gray skin like stone and eyes that glowed red with hatred. For 300 years, he had conquered worlds, without any real resistance. The humans had made him look weak in front of his empire. Burn their cities, he commanded his fleet. Take their children for slaves. Make an example of this species so that no one else will ever dare to fight us. But Krax had made a terrible mistake. He thought Earth would be defended like the peaceful worlds he usually attacked. He expected the humans to surrender when they saw the size of his fleet. Instead, he found himself facing the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Carter had spent months preparing for this moment. Every human warship that could fight was waiting in Earth's solar system. Weapons platforms floated in space around the planet. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. The battle began when the Vorthak fleet reached Jupiter. Human long-range missiles struck the enemy formation, destroying 20 ships in the first attack. But the aliens kept coming, their energy shields protecting most of their vessels. All ships, attack pattern 7, Carter ordered. Hit them from every direction at once. Captain Laura Hill led her destroyer squadron in a desperate charge against the Vorthak center. Her ship Thunderbolt took heavy damage, but she kept fighting even as sections of her vessel caught fire. "Sir, we're losing power to the main guns," her weapons officer reported. "Then ram them," Hill replied calmly. "Set collision course with their flagship." Hill's sacrifice destroyed the Vorthak command ship and threw their formation into confusion. But there were still hundreds of enemy vessels pushing toward Earth. The fighting was brutal and desperate. Human ships were smaller and weaker than Vorthak vessels, but they fought with a fury their enemies couldn't understand. Every human pilot and captain knew that their families, their children, their entire civilization was behind them. Commander Mark Foster led a squadron of fighters against a group of Vorthak bombers heading for Earth cities. His small ships dove through enemy fire, destroying the bombers before they could reach the planet. Foster's fighter was hit by enemy weapons, but he managed to crash into the last bomber, saving millions of lives on the surface. The battle raged for hours. Human defense platforms around Earth fired everything they had at the approaching enemy. The sky filled with explosions and debris from destroyed ships. But slowly the Vorthak were getting closer to the planet. On Earth's surface, General Susan Clark prepared for the worst. If enemy ships broke through the orbital defenses, they would try to land troops in the major cities. Clark had every available soldier ready to fight in the streets if necessary. "Remember," she told her officers, "this is our home. Every building, every street, every park is worth dying for. Make them pay for every step they take." The Vorthak managed to land troops in 3 cities. In New York, human soldiers fought house-to-house battles against alien invaders twice their size. In London, citizens joined the fighting, throwing improvised weapons from rooftops. In Tokyo, the police and military worked together to trap enemy forces in the narrow streets. But the real turning point came when Commander Davis and his Liberation Fleet returned from Kalari space. His ships had been fighting for months, freeing alien worlds and destroying Vorthak installations. They were tired and damaged, but they arrived at Earth just when the battle looked hopeless. "This is Commander Davis to Admiral Carter," came the message over the communication system. "The Liberation Fleet is here. We brought some friends." Behind Davis's human ships came vessels from a dozen different alien species. Kalari crystal ships that moved like living art. Nex agricultural vessels converted into fighters. Zeth mining. Ships armed with industrial cutting lasers. All the species that humanity had freed were now fighting to protect Earth. Elder Zara commanded the Kalari battle group from her flagship. "For 50 years we waited for someone to help us," she announced to the combined fleet. "Today we help the ones who gave us hope." The arrival of the Liberation Fleet and their alien allies changed everything. The Vorthak found themselves outnumbered and surrounded. Ships that had been attacking Earth were now fighting for their lives against enemies coming from every direction. Emperor Krax watched his fleet being destroyed around him. His red eyes burned with rage as he realized he was losing the battle. No one had ever defeated the Vorthak before. The idea was impossible. Captain Morrison brought the Horizon's Edge, the ship that had first received the Kalari distress signal, alongside the Emperor's vessel. Through the communication system, he spoke directly to the alien ruler. Emperor Krax, this is Captain Morrison of the human ship Horizon's Edge. Your empire ends today. Surrender now, and your surviving ships will be allowed to leave. Krax's reply was filled with hatred. Humans, you think you have won? We have ruled the galaxy for centuries. We will not be defeated by primitive animals like you. Then you'll die like the tyrant you are, Morrison replied simply. The final battle took place around Krax's flagship. Human and alien ships working together overwhelmed the Emperor's defenses. Morrison himself led the boarding party that captured the bridge. Krax stood alone among the bodies of his bridge crew, still defiant even in defeat. You may have won today, but there will be others. The strong will always rule the weak. Morrison looked at the alien Emperor with disgust. You're wrong. The strong protect the weak. That's what makes them strong. The war ended with Krax's capture. The surviving Vorthak ships fled back to their territory, but they found no safety there. Rebellions had broken out on every world they controlled. Species that had been enslaved for generations were finally fighting back, inspired by humanity's example. 3 months later, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered on Earth for the signing of the Galactic Freedom Treaty. The Vorthak Empire was divided among the species they had enslaved. War crimes trials began for surviving Vorthak leaders. Elder Zara stood with President Rodriguez as they watched the former emperor being led away in chains. Your people kept their promise, Zara said, her crystal skin glowing with warm colors. You freed us all. Rodriguez smiled. Elder Zara, that distress signal you sent changed everything. It showed us who we really are. In the communication center of the Horizon's Edge, Lisa Martinez monitored the galaxy-wide network that had grown from the simple distress call she had first detected. Now it carried messages of hope and freedom to every corner of known space. The SOS had been answered. Humanity had unleashed its fury not for conquest or power but for justice. And the galaxy would never be the same. From that day forward, no cry for help would go unanswered. Humanity had found its place among the stars, as the guardians of the innocent and the enemies of tyranny. The age of the Vorthak was over. The age of freedom had begun,